As you know, Rob Ford passed away yesterday. He was 46. I want the city of Toronto to honor him by renaming the Etobicoke Civic Center after him, Rob Ford Civic Center. I'll tell you about that in a moment and how you can sign our petition to do that. But first, can I say a few words about the man? Give me 5 minutes of your time to tell you about the Rob Ford that the mainstream media didn't show you. Ford was a champion of taxpayers. We know that. He cut taxes by $1 billion. He contracted out garbage collection, taking it away from overpaid government unions who like to strike in the middle of a hot, humid summer. He ended the gravy train for lobbyists and insiders. And he never even submitted expenses for himself like all other politicians do. He was a taxpayer's champion. But he was also a champion of new Canadians, of minorities, of the poor, not just in his rhetoric and not just giving away other people's money. Sort of the opposite of that, actually. I mean, any politician can talk a good game, but name me another politician of Ford's rank who actually spends countless hours as a volunteer coach for a football team in a low-income, multi-ethnic community, including with its share of troubled kids. Nobody else does that. None of them mean it when they say they love minorities or the poor, especially the white liberals who talk a good game about diversity and helping the poor, but who then go back to their gated all-white communities and their all-white clubs and send their kids to private school. Rob Ford actually loved the people, all people, people ignored by the fancy snobs. Here's a map made by the website Torontoist, showing the results of Ford's election as mayor. The darker the blue color, the higher Ford's vote. The darker the yellow, the higher the vote for his left-wing liberal opponent in that election, George Smitherman. It might as well be a map of Toronto by ethnicity. The areas that voted most for him are the most minority neighborhoods. I've never met a Torontonian from the Caribbean who didn't love Rob Ford because he loved them. Here's a video the Toronto Star published of Rob Ford dancing at Carabana, the big celebration. The Star was trying to mock Ford because he looks a bit goofy, especially at the end there. But you know what every Jamaican in Toronto saw? A guy loving the music and the culture and the spirit and the food and not worrying about what the cameras thought. That was 100% real, just like his countless hours volunteering with black kids, hiring black staff. Rob Ford always danced. Goofy, white guy dancing, yeah, but you know what people saw? A humble man, no pretense, real enjoyment of cultural events, not talking down his nose condescendingly. Here he is in a black church, singing and dancing, 100% real. That's respect. He didn't film himself doing that. He didn't bring a media crew like every other politician would. It was someone else in the church who was so impressed with Ford that he took a video on his cell phone. Even when Ford was not at his best, even when he was having some trouble, serious trouble, people saw the authentic guy under it all. Let me show you a moment of a video that was made to embarrass Rob Ford, and it is embarrassing, but look at the love this guy had, how comfortable he was in his Jamaican patois.
Child, man, that man, it takes me around 5 months, man. Bumble clock, man. I said, bro, for a minute, man. My eyes cry, blah, blah, blah. Man, hey, leave me alone, man. They got 5 months, man. I said, bro, just cut some. No, man, no money, man. Child. That bumble clock, man.
Now, this video was a private rant by Ford in a private restaurant, private moment after the restaurant closed, talking with friends, one of whom obviously got paid $5,000 or whatever the media was paying that day for people to invade Ford's privacy. And this video was meant to show how racist and drunk Rob Ford was. Now, I hope I'm never secretly recorded in my home or at a private place when I'm not on my best. But you know what I saw in that video and what a lot of people saw? Besides the media's invasion of his privacy, we saw a guy who's so real and so connected to the people, he actually does a pretty good Jamaican patois, and he knows a few terms like bumbaclot. My point is, in all of Ford's foibles, he was the butt of his own jokes. He was the victim of his own problems, but he never stole from anyone. He never hurt anyone, maybe other than himself. The media calling him racist, really? Why? Because of his rant there? The opposite. Every minority who ever saw Rob Ford treat them like an equal knows Ford's the opposite of a racist. And they saw in the media political establishment's treatment of him and hounding him and super critical inspection of him and assuming the worst about him, a reminder of how the fancy people, how white liberals of elitist Toronto treat them, treat minorities. The millions of dollars police spent tracking Ford, even with helicopters. Yeah, you don't think every minority said, Been there, brother. Just got carded yesterday. Every minor flaw in Ford magnified. Classism, snobbery, and every community where people struggle to get beyond a perception of criminality, like the Caribbean community, saw that piling on. Ford himself wasn't black or poor. He was actually the son of privilege, but he treated everyone as his equal, and he clearly loved Caribbean people. I'm talking about race and class, but I'm trying to make a point that Rob Ford, the conservative tax cutter, was in real life more tolerant and open-minded and loving and had a bigger heart than the liberals who hated him. He lived their supposed creed. He sure was a better Democrat, too. He answered every phone call he got. He went into housing projects where white liberals would never go without a police escort. Even when the Toronto Star called him up as some sort of a prank or a trick, part of a gotcha story, one of the countless tricks they did on him, he went through with it. And he met the Star in good faith, as if they really needed his help. They mocked him anyways. Look, Rob Ford was a flawed man, but no one deserves the relentless systemic assault on them 24 hours a day in public and in private like Ford went through. You know, the CBC actually flew in Mary Walsh all the way from Newfoundland to send her onto Ford's private home, his private property, at precisely the time he was taking his kids to school. Show me in the history of Canadian politics or media when a liberal politician had his privacy invaded like that, just for laughs. All the fancy people with their anti-bullying campaigns and their love for fairness and balance, there was a viciousness towards Ford from them I've never seen before. He brought some of the troubles on himself, absolutely, particularly with his substance abuse. But I say again, when liberals have drug or alcohol problems, they have a good cry on Oprah Winfrey, and they're called heroes. I have no doubt that Ford's lifestyle contributed to his early grave. I also have no doubt that the relentless psychological abuse he took from every media outlet in the country added to it too, and every nuisance lawsuit against him by his tormentors. They tried to hide the glee in their voices as they all wrote their obituaries in today's papers. Even the Toronto Star laughably said they were sad, yeah, right, as they milked Rob Ford just one last time to sell more newspapers, but this time free from any legal concerns about libeling him. I miss Rob Ford. I liked what he did as mayor, but I loved that he stood up to the bullies. That's why they hated him. He's gone now. Hopefully he's at peace. He's probably singing some Caribbean love song, maybe coaching football. And if there were any taxes in heaven, he'd be cutting them now. But you know what? We need to do one last thing for Rob Ford. I'm glad we sent him that card and flowers last week. I'm glad he knew we cared. But we have to do one more thing for him now, one last thing. You know, up there in North York, they call the central plaza of the town Mel Lastman Square. It was named after Mel Lastman, the great mayor of North York, who went on to be the mayor of Toronto. He was a flawed man too, but also a great man of the people, also hated by the fancy types because they thought he was too low class also. Well, look, if they can name the central square in North York after Mel Lastman, they can name the Civic Center in Etobicoke, which is now called the Etobicoke Civic Center. They can rename it after that community's great mayor and city councilor and leading citizen, Rob Ford. It should be called the Rob Ford Civic Center. So sign our petition today. One more battle for Rob. Sign our petition to get the name of that building changed. One last mission for Ford Nation. Make the fancy people, the bosses, the snobs, show Rob Ford this one demonstration of respect. Sign our petition now at honorrobford.com or click right here. My goal is to get 50,000 signatures on the petition. You don't even have to have voted for Rob Ford. You just have to believe that a man who served the public so selflessly ought to have a moment of recognition by that same public. No state funeral, nothing fancy. Don't spend tax dollars on it. Rob Ford wouldn't have wanted that. The opposite, just rename the Grassroots Civic Office in his memory. Go to honorrobford.com and join us. Thanks for watching. Click here to never miss a Rebel update. Want even more of the Rebel? Well, click here to become a premium member.